On this episode of Hudson Valley Hustle, I'm joined by Paul Stewart, the co-owner of B&B Archery in Middletown. Paul started working there as an employee in 2017 and then ended up buying the place with his partner in 2022. You're going to get a lot of value out of this one, and it's just a really cool business to know. Hope you enjoy the episode. So did you start off as an employee at B&B?
I did, yeah. So in 2017 is when I first came into B&B. I had kind of an interesting transition in my life. Prior to that, I was military, then went back to college, and then I actually owned and operated a CrossFit strength and conditioning gym down in North Carolina. For several years, was competing on the CrossFit side of things, and then I got really sick as a result of stuff from the Navy. Ended up having like 13 surgeries, which brought me back here to home. And interestingly enough, how I got back into it was, I couldn't do a whole lot else, but I had bow hunted as a kid. So once I kind of got back on my feet, I could sit in the backyard and shoot a bow. And what that did for me mentally was just amazing. And I kind of dove down a deep rabbit hole from there, started working at B&B in 2017. And then long story short, now I co-own it with my business partner, Namari Gordon.
Wow, that's amazing. So Navy, you said?
Yeah, Navy.
Well, thank you for everything.
Oh, my pleasure.
Really, it's huge, man. So you hear that all the time. I mean, there's several stories of employees that end up buying the business. Do you think being involved in that made it a little bit easier knowing the ins and outs of the business?
I think you have to be. There's especially in an industry like ours where it's so niche. There's the target side of archery, there's the bow hunting side of archery. You really have to know not just the technical, but how the buying and selling within the industry works, because it's really unique. Where you're having to program orders, in January for what you think you're going to need for August and September. So if you don't know that or haven't experienced that, if you're brand new to the industry, you're not going to be able to just move in, buy a shop and expect to succeed.
Yeah, for sure. How do you manage the seasonality of it? Because I know, especially in the Northeast, a lot of our clients have seasonal businesses, right? Where weather is, makes or breaks their business. How does archery in relation to that?
So that's something that we're currently working with right now with the recent expansion that we just had, because bow hunting is seasonal, but archery is not. There's always target archery going on throughout the year. In the wintertime, you have indoor competitions with Vegas 3-Spot and NFAA. Through the spring now, where we're getting into, everybody's getting outside. They're doing 3D shoots at all the different sportsmen's clubs and your world tour circuit. And then bow hunting kicks off, out west in August. So guys are getting ready for their western trips. And then in October, the main, meat and potatoes of our season kicks off here. So for us, we just recently moved from, our small little shop that we were in, that everything started in. I mean, it was maybe 800 square feet, super, super small. We didn't have an indoor range. We were primarily bow hunting, and we still primarily are bow hunting. But now with the move, we moved to the old Plate Hogs facility in Middletown. Everything's up and coming. We saw an opportunity there to get in before everything got big. And, they just came out with a press release that now Planet Fitness is moving in there. There's a Starbucks. They've got a big distribution warehouse going in. So it's coming around, and we have an indoor range. So this winter was our first time having the indoor range. And what it did for us in that slow first quarter was amazing. We were able to have seminars, coaching, lessons, parties. I can't tell you how many, people in their, early 20s or late teens were coming in. Hey, we saw archery. We were just looking for something to do. Can we do a lesson? Yeah, sure. So we got a group rate, set up some balloons, let them pop some balloons.
That's fun.
Whether you're a kid or an adult, the first time somebody pops a balloon, their faces light up. So it's awesome. Yeah,
that's great. So you have things available for pretty much year round. So it's,
exactly.
Make it not a seasonal not a seasonal thing. Exactly.
You have to.
Hard to survive like that.
For sure.
What do you think about a small shop going up against somebody like a big box retailer? You guys are in Middletown, right? So Dick's is still open in the mall, I assume, right? So how do you compete with that? I know a lot of small businesses, they struggle when there's somebody that offers something similar, similar niche. I know it's not the same thing, but how do you compete with something like that?
You focus on what you're good at. And for us, that was being a pro shop. With talking at the competition with Dick's Sporting Goods, we're not in a race to the bottom. We're in a race to the top. So the stuff that we're going to carry and the service that we're going to provide is going to be completely different than what a Dick's Sporting Goods, a Gander Mountain that used to be there, or a Cabela's or anything like that provides. You can go to a Dick's, well, not anymore because they stopped carrying hunting equipment altogether.
Oh, did they really?
Which works out really well for us.
Oh, that's great for you
so,
then.
Yeah, they're still carrying fishing, but no more. They're not doing anything with hunting firearms at all. But use Cabela's, for example, right? Everybody knows Cabela's. Everybody knows Bass Pro. You can go to Cabela's and buy a ready-to-hunt bow package for pretty cheap, right? And the stuff that's on this thing, it's made out of plastic parts. It's made overseas. Nobody's really setting you up for that thing. People don't realize that compound bows in particular, they're very, very specific to your height, your draw weight, your face shape. Everything has to be custom built to you. So we see it all the time. People will go and buy these bows ready to hunt. They'll take them home. They're not set up for them, and they'll blow them up. And then they have to take them to a shop like us, and we've got to educate them on exactly what was supposed to have happened. So our way to compete with stuff like that is just to provide absolute superior service and to focus on what we're good at. We're a pro shop. We're going to give you a professional setup, whether you're a beginner or an advanced archer, and we're going to stand behind our work.
Gotcha. So again, it's offer something they don't.
They can't.
They can't. Yeah, they literally can't because they're just focusing on that race to the bottom.
Correct.
One of my, I want to say it was Seth Godin, like super popular marketer, if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
I think it was him that said, the problem with the race to the bottom is that somebody eventually wins.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that one. You don't want to be the one that wins that race. That's for sure.
Not at all.
Definitely competing on that. I think I told you I used to work with a small shop across the river years ago. And I always wondered how a place like that survived, right? And every time I would be in there, I would see how they interact with customers, and they know everybody, and it's service, and it's taking care of the product after they buy it, and educating and constantly giving value.
Correct.
Where you can do that when you're leaner. You can't do that when you're worried about just putting the cheapest thing out there.
Yeah. Your team and the customer experience is everything. I can't tell you how many archery pro shops you go into that there's a grumpy old guy sitting at the counter. You walk in and they're more or less like, what do you want? And what does that make you want to do? Especially if you're somebody new. It makes you want to turn around and leave. So for us, everything is about the environment. As soon as somebody walks through that door, they're being greeted. How can we help you today? What's your experience level? What are you looking for? We're going to listen to the customer first, and then we're going to guide them in a direction that it sounds like they're coming. And then as far as our team goes, it's got to be, this is probably from my military background, but B&B Archery has a product, right? There's a million different ways to set up a bow, but there's one way that B&B Archery does it. And that's going to be consistent, whether I build the bow or any of our techs build the bow. And where that comes into play is our quality control, right? So I'll give you an example. Nick, he's been with us for 4.5 years, I think going on 5. It was almost 2 years before he touched a bow. Everything was just learning the layout of the shop, learning how to interact with customers, learning what the products are, what works with what brands, what doesn't work with other ones. And then, hey, you've been doing this for a year, you've been cutting arrows. Now we can start you with like a kid setup, something very, very basic. All right, get good at that. Now let's work on changing strings and cables. Now let's work on that. There's no real certification for technicians in our industry. The Archery Trade Association, they just came out with one this past year that they're kind of trying to make the staple. But really the only way to learn this stuff is to get hands-on as an apprenticeship. And if you don't maintain that quality control over it, it can get sideways a little bit quickly.
Yeah, and I'm sure dangerous too, right?
Yeah.
You're dealing with you're not dealing with vacuum cleaners, you're dealing with a weapon, right?
So exactly.
You got to have a little more quality control for sure.
And those bows are under, especially crossbows. Crossbows are even more so. You really got to be paying attention.
Are they still popular right now?
They're super popular.
Really?
Everybody wants them.
Was it Walking Dead that got?
I think so.
It was Daryl that
you'd be shocked how many people, during COVID came from New York City trying to buy crossbows for their home protection because they couldn't own firearms in the city. So that was good for us.
You can own a crossbow in the city?
Yeah, you can own a crossbow in the city.
Can you imagine just walking down the street?
Crossbow slung over the shoulder.
Oh God.
Yeah, everybody's wearing their masks. It looks like something, straight out of a Will Smith movie.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I remember. I remember when Walking Dead came out. I remember that's when I know you remember from when we worked with the other place that when the crossbows came up, everybody wanted crossbows because of that, and that's great. Yeah, those have got to be.
Yeah, they're under such a tremendous amount of pressure.
Yeah.
We've got special jigs and everything and presses that have to press them, but you've got to be really careful when you're working in around the axles of those things.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure they're on there just right, because if they slip off and explode, you better watch out for your fingers.
Yeah. That's wild. Mm-hmm. So you really take the time to train your team and make sure that
we take a long time.
That's good.
Yep.
How big is the team?
So we've got myself, the other owner, and we've got 3 employees.
Nice.
2 of those employees are now to the point where they're doing full technician type work. And the other one, he just came in with us recently as we did the move. He kind of helped us with the build out of the move, and he stayed on board. You know, we try to. There's different ways that you can do it in this industry. In some shops, they'll bring in people who are experienced archers that have been in the game for a long time. But in my experience, they're kind of set in how they like to do things. And that's totally okay. It doesn't mean that the way that they're doing things is wrong. But we really like to mold our guys to do it exactly how our brand is doing it, right? So we can pick up a bow, and I can tell you, as soon as I look at how everything's tied in, how everything's set, if that was a B&B setup or not. And all of our guys at the shop can tell too.
Yeah.
So it's, quality control is huge. It takes a long time to train that team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Did your military background help you or hurt you in managing people?
It's you learn a lot of what to do and a lot of what not to do from the military. You see good leaders, and you know that those leaders are the ones that are pulling from the front, right? It's a lot easier to pull from the front than it is to push from the back. I'm never going to ask one of my guys to do something that I wouldn't do or haven't already personally done or gone through myself. And that's kind of how we try to lead these guys. We try to foster an environment of constant growth where it's not just, hey, this is your job, show up, punch the clock. We want to know what they're doing in their personal lives. We want to know what their goals are. We want to know what their aspirations are. And we're trying to feed them into that, whether it's continuing with us or not, right? We've got these young, hungry guys working in the shop, and we want them to succeed. Travis, our one employee, he just made Eagle Scout. He's a younger guy. That's nice. A huge accomplishment. So we're going to celebrate that, So, yeah.
No, that's great. I always find it interesting when somebody finds something that they love and then turn it into a business. That can be a struggle for a lot of people because it's the thing that they love to do that's now work. How do you manage that? Does that bother you at all? Do you ever get bogged down by?
Yeah, for sure. I think anybody that said they wouldn't, would be lying. When it gets to be July, August, and it's getting ready where you're getting close to hunting season, you really want to be out hunting, but that shop is just absolutely cranking and you're busy. Yeah, you can get a little worn down in the day-to-day, but you kind of have to just take a step back, look at the big picture. Like, I get to do this, right? I get to do the one thing that I love every single day. I'm not in some office sitting over a keyboard. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not for me, right? I need to be interacting with people. I need to be up doing the things that I love. I need to be pushing myself. So, yeah, you try to just kind of take a step back and remind yourself that, hey, you do love this. And then once the season slows down, you got to get back into the fun side of things. So you got to get out and shoot in leagues. You got to get out and shoot in the 3D shoots or do some of the big mountain shoots. They do a lot of, it's almost like golf, but cooler.
Huge
right?
golfer.
Okay.
All right. Whoa. That was a great interview, guys. We'll
end it there. I mean, if I could hit somebody in the shin while we were playing golf, that might be a little bit more fun. But no, it's kind of like golf where they set it up, but you go to a ski resort. So you take the ski lift all the way up to the top. And then you hike your way down shooting at different 3D targets.
Cool. Okay.
So, and they kind of set it up similar to golf where you have tee times and you can work your way through the mountain based on your team.
I've done that over in New Paltz at the place there.
Okay.
They kind of set it up with different stations. There's however many different stations.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
You kind of treat it like it's a hole of golf,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so you got to find the fun in things again. So
yeah, you do. And you quickly realize that a lot of things are not fun when you run a business that you're not expecting until you get in it.
You don't realize how much goes on the back end.
Yeah.
And we say that now, I talk with my guys, they kind of bust my chops about it. I think I do less bow work now than I've ever done in the time that we've been there, just because you're doing so much of the back end administrative stuff, whether that's talking with vendors, placing your orders for the year, trying to maintain relationships, calling different customers, setting up events, setting up things like this.
Yep.
You're constantly trying to push that envelope forward, and that takes up a lot of time.
It does, yeah, and it's not something that people realize until, like I said, you wake up and go to work, and it's like, wait, I don't get to just do the thing that I go in there and I want to do. I got to go make a video. I have to make sure we're getting our name out there. I have to order this. Oh crap, somebody complained about this and all that. How are you? So how are you guys getting the word out there as far as what you do? Like, where are your main marketing channels? Where are you getting most of your customers from?
For sure. So this is something that we're constantly adapting and changing. Obviously, the hardest thing is to beat is customer referrals, right? If a customer had a really good experience, that one person is going to tell 5 of their friends about it. Those people come in, they're going to tell 5 of their friends, right? And that just compounds. So that has always been our number one. Now that can't be everything, right? So
can't control it.
Social media has been absolutely huge for us. Since we started, the Instagram and Facebook page, and we've tried to put consistent content. We just try to provide value for people, number one. And then 2, we try to be our true, authentic selves on it. We're not putting out, just some humdrum, boring stuff. Our shop is fun, right? There is a lot of chops that get busted in our shop. There's a lot of back and forth and banter. And we try to post a lot of that in our social media so that people feel involved. We recently just started a YouTube channel where we're putting out different tips and tricks and things that we wish we would have learned back in the day. We're going to expand that a little bit into more of a healthy lifestyle, right? A healthy and bow hunting lifestyle. So it'll have all of your archery stuff. We're going to get on there. We're going to do a little bit more wild game recipe type stuff. So we're going to do a little bit more, right? Cool. Hey, from field to table, this is exactly how we do it. And then, a big part of the Western hunting, not so much whitetail hunting, is your fitness. And with my background in fitness and strength and conditioning, as well as, my wife, she's a multiple-time Ironman. My business partner was a Jamaican national volleyball player. So we all have this athletics background. So we're going to kind of pull into that a little bit too. Hey, this is how we're getting ready for hunting season. This is how we're pushing ourselves outside of just bow hunting and archery. So it's going to be an all-encompassed YouTube page.
That's huge. I think a struggle with content marketing now is that businesses feel like they have to constantly come up with ideas, constantly feed the machine, which you do, but they focus very heavily on the sales aspect of it and not the value side of things, where people don't go to Facebook to go buy something. They go they go there to be entertained. They don't go to Instagram. They go to Instagram to learn something or to see something new or to laugh or to learn something, right? And it's not just about the bow, right? It's not just about the thing that you do every day. I always tell business owners, create things that are around what you do, that are on the fringes of what you do. So it may be fitness, it may be food. It all feeds back to that one thing that you do.
Right? Exactly. That might be something that person loves, and like, hey, I've always wanted to try shooting a bow. Let me go into this shop and do it because those are my people. They get me.
Yeah, absolutely. And create that community on social. Yeah. The one thing I have a question for you about specifically when it comes to social is, have you run into any issues with the fact that you are selling weapons?
Yeah, 100%. We've been flagged and pulled down multiple times, and some of it is for stuff that's it was some of our better posts. The stuff that that's got thousands and thousands of views. All of a sudden, boom, we're shut down. Yep. So you've got to go through the appeal process and try to get it all worked out. I found with those companies, your first appeal doesn't typically work out so well, right? It probably goes into some algorithm and nope, this doesn't fit criteria. But once you can get an actual person to take a look at it and see that we didn't violate any kind of rules for social media, then we're typically good to go. So we haven't had too much issue other than, I think we had like 3 posts that were taken down and during the season last year. It always happens during the season.
Yeah, of course. And like you said, it's always the ones that are doing well.
Yep.
It's never the ones that are just throwaway kind of posts. Yeah, no, that's
why would they be? Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of advice do you have for somebody that's working in a shop, similar to the way you were, that's thinking about going into that entrepreneurship level? Because it's very different from when you're working there to when you're running the place.
Right. I would say do your due diligence for sure. Make sure that you're not just looking at it from the perspective of this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, but make sure that it's a viable business that you can make a living off of and feed your family, right?
Yeah.
We talked about this before we got on. There's not a lot of archery pro shops that are actually full-time. We're probably one of the few that this is all we do, right? We don't have outside jobs that we're footing the bill for everything for. Like this, we're fully invested into this, which would be my second piece of advice, would be to make sure you're fully invested into it. If you kind of go into this industry half-hearted, it's not going to work out. It's really not going to work out. So you've got to have all your ducks in a row. And then for me, something that really helped is I have an amazing business partner. And choosing a business partner can be a tricky thing, right? You have to have strengths that you both bring to the table. So for me, it was clear what I was bringing to the table, right? I had the technical knowledge and the inside kind of understanding of how the industry works. Now, my business partner, Namari, we met because he was a customer of the shop, right? So he came in, he's coming from a totally different perspective than what I have of the shop. He's looking at it from the outside in. This is what he sees when he parks his car at the business. This is what he sees when he walks up the stairs to get in there and he opens the door. This is how he feels when he's greeted by your staff. So we can kind of have our heads together and we can look at things from two totally different perspectives to make, and we don't always agree, right? Probably it's 50-50. 50% of the time we're like, all right, cool, yeah, that's exactly how both of us feel. The other 50% of the time, right, I may have one opinion, he may have the other, and we kind of find the middle ground, like, all right, these are the two ideas, what's the best path forward? And it's really worked out for us so far.
That's great. Yeah, no, you having that. I know partnerships can struggle. Like they're not easy.
Yep.
You have to be super clear on what each person's role is and kind of keeping it in that line. But yeah, you need to balance each other out. I think that's any good relationship, right?
You can't have two people with the exact same traits.
No way, not at all. Not at all. Like I always say that, like I'm the complete opposite of my wife, and that's probably why we work.
Exactly.
Right? Because
it's
you
all
have
relationships.
to be. Yeah, absolutely.
Really is.
Speaking of how supportive of this was your wife and all of this?
Oh, crucial. Absolutely crucial. My wife and I, we have 6 kids. I've got 5 stepkids, and then my son Torsten was just born a year and a half ago. We're heavily into fitness and races and hiking. Like I said, Crystal's a 2-time Ironman. I'm doing some endurance stuff. I just finished a 50-mile ultra this past weekend, which was pretty fun. We were able to have everybody kind of surround around that. So she's been a huge support because she stays home, takes care of basically everything at home, so that I can go to the shop and fully focus on what needs to be done. If you don't have a supportive partner and spouse in your business ventures, that's going to be a limiting factor, right? You have to be in it together 100%.
Yeah, I'm the risk taker. She's the one that kind of brings me down to reality, right?
For sure.
I don't know if that's how you guys are, but like usually there's one that wants to go out and do something nuts, and the other one.
For me, I have a hard time saying no to anything. Like I hear something and I'm like, hell yeah, let's go do it. Crystal's like, hey, is that really where you need to be spending your time? And
the little voice of reason on the shoulder. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. If it was just me, my schedule would probably be jam packed from January to December with all kinds of stuff every single week.
I hear you. But that's it's huge, man. Because it can be a total struggle if you go home every day and you don't have that. You don't have that support. You don't have that person bringing you up because this can beat you down. For sure. You don't want to go home and deal with the same exact thing when this is your dream. This is what you're trying to do. It's just in you. Do you think it's just in you, or do you think it can be taught?
I think a little bit of both. I was listening to a podcast on the way over here about leadership, and then coming from the the military background, there's so many different types of leaders. And the question that always comes up is like, all right, is leadership and entrepreneurship something that's born and given to you, or is it something that's made over time? And really, it can be both, right? When you're younger and, say you're a part of a sports team and you see that kid that's out there, he's always positive and he's encouraging and he's loud and he's holding other kids accountable. Like, cool, that kid has some natural born leadership abilities, but it doesn't mean that he's going to take those traits and maximize them going into life. So you have to hone it, right? Like it's the edge of a knife or a sword. You have to keep practicing it and moving forward. So I think that certain people have kind of like a drive, that want to be entrepreneurs, that want to work for themselves, that maybe don't do well in environments where they're being told what to do all the time.
Hi.
I'm there too. And I think it's just a matter of what you do from there. You have to have that mindset of constant growth. in order to make it work. Because if you don't, if you think, oh, I just, you're beating your head against the wall, you don't want to work for anybody else, it's not going to work out. You have to constantly be changing and evolving.
Yeah, I think the want for constant growth is kind of scary, right? Because some people can look at that and be like, can't you just be kind of content with where you're at? And I can't be. I don't know why. It's just how I'm wired. I'm not.
Complacency kills, As soon as you get complacent in what you're doing, you lose your edge, you lose your soul. So your soul needs that struggle.
Yeah, not only that, but in the business world, you let somebody else come in and have a little bit more ambition to take you out. I mean, like that's because that'll happen too.
Yeah, it's the truth.
But yeah, that's one thing my wife is always like, just try to slow down. Like don't try to grow too fast. But my brain just wants to just go.
Yeah,
that's just
how you have a hard time shutting off at night.
Actually, I don't. So that's the interesting thing. So In the beginning, I had a hard time turning it off. I've been in business for 9 years, and in the beginning, I had a hard time. Right? Yeah. I remember being in the delivery room for my first kid, answering a client email, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this is stupid. So it was kind of around that time where and I've talked about this before, is I have to set up the boundaries, right? Because because lots of people I deal with business owners all day. Like, those are my clients, right? So I deal with a lot of people that can't turn it off.
Right.
So they think that everybody around them doesn't turn it off.
It's the same way.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not like that. So I set it up pretty early on with clients. I'm like, hey, you can reach me when I'm working. You've got me. Yep. I can be reachable. My team can be reachable when I'm home.
Yep.
I'm not answering you. If it's on the weekend, I'm not answering you. There are no marketing emergencies that happen at 9 p.m.
Yeah.
It's not happening. So I had to do that. Like, that's just me. So, but it sounds like you have a tough time turning it off.
I did for a long time, and I'm getting better with it now. The hard part for me is that, it's like, I hate to say it this way, but it's like someone else's poor planning is not my emergency.
That's true.
It's like true. We get to the season, and sometimes, man, you'll get text messages or phone calls at like 10 o'clock at night on a Sunday. And you're like, all right, well, I'm going to answer you when I get up in the morning at 5 o'clock in the morning, Monday morning, when I'm getting up to go on my morning run or something like that. It's not that you're trying to be rude. It's like you said, you're trying to establish those boundaries. Like, hey, you don't have access to me 24/7.
That's right.
Now, my team, my family, they have access to me mostly 24/7, right? Like, if I'm gone on, a trip with my wife and my kids, for the most part, my team knows that my phone's off. But if they have a real emergency or something's going on, they need my input, they know they can get a hold of me.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you have to be able to separate it. And I think that kind of speaks to how to avoid burnout.
Absolutely.
Is understanding that you have to set those boundaries, know when to turn it on and when to turn it off.
Yeah. It's a balance, man. Because that always wanting to go and grow.
Yep.
And then with that also, like, dude, you got to slow down and not,
Sometimes you need a refresher.
You got to
Sometimes all you need is a weekend break. That's
true.
it.
Yeah. I mean,
just to disconnect from everything, and then you come back and you've got a fresh mind.
Yeah, absolutely. How many times we finish something on like a Friday or something, and then look at it on Monday, be like, you know what?
Let's change this. Let's tweak this.
Let's tweak it because it looks a little bit different. Yeah,
we do that all the time.
When you're in it every single day. It's very hard to look at it from the outside. And that's what's great about, your partner, I guess, your business partner, is that he came into it as a customer. He's the customer. He's the guy you're trying to get in the store.
Exactly.
So he's got that really interesting perspective. So that's really great. The entrepreneurial ride is definitely a rocky one for sure. And you didn't necessarily start the business, but you bought it.
Right.
Can you just talk a little bit about like what buying a business looks like for somebody that's interested in that?
I don't, and I'm sure this wasn't like a super typical buyout, or, there's a million different ways to buy a business. You can do an inventory buyout where you essentially just purchase the inventory, start your own company, and then take over from there. Or like we did in our case, right? B&B Archery has been around since 1992. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, more than 30 years worth of that logo being out, people knowing the name. So we knew that there was some things that were good and some things that were bad that went along with the brand. And what we had to do was essentially step into the shoes of the brand and then tweak the things that we thought were negatives and show that they've been changed and they become a positive. As far as negotiations go, obviously there's a lot of back and forth. If I were to give advice to somebody, it would be just take your time with it. Do not be in a rush. Make sure that everything is checked. All the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. Take care of your paperwork. Do a thorough check as far as checking on, any vendors, making sure vendors are paid, making sure everything and accounts are up to date, making sure that you can actually transfer the dealership, right? So for us, even though we were stepping into the shoes of the previous owner, we had to reapply for most of our vendorships, right? Because
Different
some of
people,
these,
right?
Yeah,
Tied to the
different
person.
people. Yep, and a lot of this stuff is regional, so we're protected, right, with certain brands that we have, Matthews, Hoyt, PSE, Elite. If somebody else tried to open up a shop 10 minutes down the road from us, they can't.
Right.
It's not in the best interest of us, and it's not in the best interest of the parent vendor.
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
Because it's just too much competition on top of each other. So there's a mileage that's set, and we had to reapply for all that stuff. So even though we were buying the business, it wasn't a guarantee that we would get those dealerships. And that comes back to having worked in the shop and the relationships, right? I'm talking to all the reps well in advance that we're thinking about doing this, right? So now they become your best advocate, right? Their job is to kind of help facilitate that transition, say, hey, there's going to be a new person applying for this. I've been working with them for the last 7 years. They're going to take this thing to the next level. You should really give them the dealership.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So again, being in it helped you specifically,
Big time.
right? Because you were
Big time.
there having the relationships. Absolutely. Do you have any other advice that you can just give somebody that's either working, that doesn't want to work for somebody anymore, or wants to go into their own thing? What kind of advice would you give to somebody like that?
You know, just do the right thing by people and it will come back around to you. I can't tell you how many times, in my entrepreneurial journey, both with my previous business and with this one, that, when things got tough and you're just looking at it like, man, how am I gonna make this deadline? How am I gonna, pay this bill by the end of the week? You just kind of keep trying to do right by people, and somehow it comes back around and it all works out. So for me, do right by people, be your true self, right? Don't try to be anything that you're not. I heard a quote that said, and I'm going to probably butcher this, but it was something along the lines of, if the price for fitting in and doing business is to be anything other than your true self, then the price is too high. So I think if you're going to try to fake it, it's just not going to work out. You have to be your true authentic self, and you have to do right by people. And if you do those two things, you'll do good things.
It's simple.
It's very simple, but not easy.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. That's business, man. It's simple, but not easy. That's for sure. Hey, man, how can people get a hold of you, and how can they come visit the shop? Where are you guys located? Give us the rundown.
So we're located in the old Play Talks Plaza in Middletown, 130 Dolson Avenue. We're in Suite 31B. So when you get there, we're on the second floor above the movie theater. A lot of people get to the shop and they're like, "Where the heck are you?" Well, look up. Oh, all right, there you are. We're on all the social media channels. So on Instagram, it's at B&B Archery, B the letter N, B Archery. Facebook is B&B Archery NY, and YouTube is at B&B Archery. We're constantly putting stuff out there. They can give the shop a call. They can visit our website, bnbarchery.com, and just come in and say hi. Even if you haven't, done archery or anything like that, you just want to come hang out and check it out and try it for the first time, come on in. We're going to be doing a live radio broadcast from the shop June 8th. Nice. And we're going to have a try archery day. So we'll have a whole bunch of balloons set up and bows and all that stuff. So stay tuned for June 8th. We should have a fun event coming up.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much for coming on, man. This has been great.
Man. It's been
Good
a
luck.
privilege.
Good luck with everything, and we'll see you soon for sure.
Appreciate it.